Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Ideas Hive. My name is Kristen Anderson. I am the Chief Branch Officer of Ideas for Us, and today we have Mr. Compost himself, Charlie Pioli, here to talk about composting with us today. We're gonna have a great conversation. Make sure to watch the presentation and drop all your questions in the comments as we go. But before we get started, we're going to go ahead and talk about Ideas for Us and the climate action that we're doing in the community. So our mission is to develop, fund, and scale solutions that solve the world's most pressing environmental challenges. And we are able to do this through our branches around the world by following a three-step model as we educate, engage, and mobilize volunteers in climate solution projects. So every month we repeat these three steps, and the first step is educating through the Ideas Hive, which is what we're doing here today. We bring in an expert on a topic to discuss a topic that aligns with one of the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and they educate us and equip us with the knowledge that we need in order to solve this global problem with a local solution. And then when we were in person, we would take that knowledge that we just learned and come up with ideas to create eco-action projects around this information. And now we're doing this online and through our organizing team, which is open to the community. If you're interested, you can reach out to us. So we plan and organize these eco-action projects that align with the information that we learned at the Hive, and then we implement these projects through boots on the ground eco-action that we implement these projects to combat climate issues. And this takes a lot of different forms, as every month we focus on a different pillar of sustainability, cycling between energy, water, food, waste, and ecology. And we make sure to focus on these diverse areas because we know that climate change is a very multifaceted issue. So we take a very integrated approach as we do solar workshops, urban agriculture programs, waste audits, cleanups, tree plantings, pollinator gardens, shoreline restoration projects, and more. So every single month our calendar looks very different. You can always find something that you're interested in. And we do this because we believe that climate education should be free and readily available to the communities, but not only just the education, also the ability to do something, and not just to feel good about what you're doing, but also implementing a long-term climate solution that really makes an impact on your community. And so if you believe in this, please consider donating to support this mission. Every dollar counts. It goes towards our eco-action projects and the boots on the ground eco-action they're also able to get involved in. And you can also continue to learn with us through our amazing podcast on anchor.fm. Please check that out to listen from sustainable leaders from all around the world talking about their innovative solutions to climate change. And today we have the amazing Charlie Pioli, the founder and director of OTown Compost, here with us today to talk about composting and the amazing work that he's doing. So thank you so much, Charlie, for being here. Go ahead and unmute and start sharing your screen.
Yeah, thank you, Kristen. I will just share. Thank you. All right. So everyone, you guys see my screen? Okay, perfect. So yeah, today I want to, talk about composting and specifically composting at the municipal level. Maybe one day Orlando will step up into the class of other cities around the country, like, San Francisco, Austin, Texas, Seattle, and Portland, Oregon, and have curbside composting programs where composting becomes just universal, way more widespread than it is now. But I started OTown Compost about 1.5 to 2 years ago. And I started it because I noticed there wasn't any waste or food waste recycling infrastructure in the city or in Orange County at that time. So I was a little bit perturbed, and I was like, we need a solution. So started picking up buckets in my Camry. That quickly got too full, moved on to a pickup truck, And now fast forward, we have 2 or 3 drivers, and we're doing about 7,000 pounds of food waste every week. So we have residential and commercial food waste pickups. We pick up not only from households or apartments, but restaurants, cafes, offices where they drink a lot of coffee. So there's always grounds. Um, Pretty much wherever people eat, we'll be there. And we have a couple zero waste weddings coming up this fall. And just a fun fact, the average American wedding produces about 400 pounds of trash. I know because I used to be a catering server holding a silver tray, and it was pretty egregious seeing how much food waste would go out at the end of the night in black trash bags. So, we're really trying to target that sector. And, from all this, we produce what I like to call OTown Black Gold, a nutrient-rich compost that comes from a diverse set of food scraps. We take paper towels, meat, dairy, vegetables, tea, coffee. So it really, adds quite the variety of microbes and nutrients to the end product. And yeah, I mean, it's very rich. My plants, our subscribers' plants really love it. And we just started a farmer's market where we're selling our compost. It's called the Packing District Farmers Market every Saturday from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. on the corner of OBT and Princeton. So, the reason I prioritize organic waste is because it simply makes up the biggest piece of pie. At going to the landfill or going to the incinerator, it's by far the most, organic waste is the most material in our trash. So I never understood why municipalities and the government prioritizes recycling, which, that makes up a fair amount if you include all the paper, bottles, cans, cartons. But I mean, still, if you're looking for the most impactful material to target and remove from your waste stream, I would argue that your food scraps, your paper towels, your contaminated paper towels, which aren't recyclable, yard trimmings, and wood waste are all compostable. And you just need to really grow the food waste recycling infrastructure in your city. So my past career was as a solid waste consultant here in Orlando, and I was going to landfills and transfer stations around the country, witnessing firsthand how our country manages its waste. And I was pretty disenchanted to see like what a landfill looks like. I would highly recommend people to go tour the Orange County or Seminole County landfills just to like understand what becomes of our trash. It goes essentially into a hole that's lined on all 4 sides, and then it gets covered with dirt every day. And that dirt, suppresses any oxygen from the organic waste in the landfill. It suppresses it, and it doesn't allow it to decompose naturally with air. So what happens is it produces methane, which is a many more times potent greenhouse gas that accelerates climate change. And if you were to throw your banana peel on the ground behind a bush, it's exposed to air, so it is producing CO2, carbon. But when you're actually composting, you've got a stable compost, and that sequesters and stores carbon. And that's why they say we're storing a lot of carbon in our soils today. So composting is awesome for that reason. And I think it should be prioritized on the municipal level, on the governmental level, ahead of single stream recycling, which is nothing but every single stream recycling program around the country, they're able to only recycle things if the commodity markets are hot, like they are right now. So you are seeing recycling rates increase, but contamination remains really high. And that's all the trash and other items that don't belong in the recycle bins. But they told people just throw it all in one bin. And, it led to a lot of people, a lot of misinformation that it really kind of ruined recycling as a countrywide program. So yeah, well, I think the other cool thing and the other part of OTown Compost mission, besides food waste diversion from the landfill, but also we're out to provide the local food system, small farmers like fleet farming, like Four Roots, like whoever is growing food locally and selling that nutrient rich food locally, we want to provide them with a soil amendment. And compost is scarce out here in Orlando. The soil is naturally very sandy. There's not a lot of organic matter. It just makes sense to take those organic scraps that would otherwise be sent to the landfill and locked away forever, actually turn them into something that can be useful to grow our food. And this kind of breaks the dependence on the industrial agriculture system and receiving food from, hundreds of miles away, like in California or Mexico. So, I like to think our healthy soil creates healthy plants, healthy animals, and healthy humans. So that's why I say all food isn't created equal. A carrot you pick, from a fleet farm is gonna have like way more nutrient density than a carrot you buy from Publix. And that carrot grew up in soil that was once carrots and banana peels and coffee grounds. So it's a beautiful circle, and I think it's awesome. So let me talk about this food waste recycling infrastructure that I said was lacking before I started OTown Compost. And don't get me wrong, we're growing at a rapid pace, but there's still not enough here in Orange County, Central Florida. There's so much food waste. I don't think one company could, handle it in such a huge area as Orange or Seminole counties. So, there's two really sectors that food waste comes from, and that's your residential, which makes up about the majority. The food waste coming from households make up about 60% of the nation's food waste, whereas food waste coming from the commercial sector, that's like food service businesses, industrial plants, I guess farms would be in that category. That makes up about 40%. And as a composter, the food waste streams look completely different. We pick up our 5-gallon buckets from our subscribers, and it's like everything they ate, leftovers that went bad in their food, coffee grounds, paper filter, banana peels, paper towels. But, it's very diverse. But when you're picking up food waste or any waste from a commercial client, it's going to be like all of one thing with little variety. So, we pick up from Four Rivers Smokehouse, and they go through like a pallet of corn every week. So it's nothing but just shucked corn. And, it's awesome that we're diverting that from the landfill. But as a composter, you want to see more variety to really make sure that the microbial life is diverse. But here in Central Florida, we're looking at we have our composting site now out in Winter Garden that can handle about 7 tons of food scraps a week. Where there's another composting site being built on the Four Roots farm, which is you know, we share a warehouse with the Four Roots farm, and we've aligned ourselves with their mission, and their farm is going to be like this amazing educational 40-acre campus. And we're going to like bring people on the campus and demonstrate how compost is made. And it's going to be incredible when it finally opens in a couple of years. So, but between those two sites, those are only mid-scale sites. You know, that's 15 tons a week being processed. What this region really needs is a gigantic, you know, commercial scale composting facility like the one I visited in Portland, Oregon, my hometown. You know, they have actually 3 large scale composting facilities. And that way they are able to handle all the yard and food waste produced within the city's limits. And as a city, Portland, Oregon is diverting like 70% of their waste, like compared to, you know, Orange County, which is maybe more in the range of like 30%. So, you know, infrastructure it's like laying the foundation for a great future. And yeah, just so everyone knows, Orange County landfill is receiving 350,000 tons per year of organic waste. You know, it's probably more like 500,000 tons of all waste, but that 350K is what we could compost if we had the infrastructure to manage it. And I propose we put a composting facility on the face of the Orange County landfill, which, you know, is already kind of dead space. It's already been cleared. It's already where trucks are going, usually loaded up with a lot of food waste, loads full of food waste. So, you know, I think there's a great opportunity for a public-private partnership in the future, but, you know, I'll update people as that develops. So what is community composting? You know, I'm not some smart guy who pulled this out of a hat. I used to be a subscriber when I was a college student living in Boston, Massachusetts. I subscribed to Bootstrap Compost, and I love their business model. They give you a 5-gallon bucket, a liner, and a lid. You fill it up with your kitchen scraps. I kept mine in my kitchen under my kitchen sink. And then every other week or every week, you set it out on your porch and they'll come swap it out with a fresh one. And then twice a year or 3 times a year, you would get the finished compost. So you're actually seeing what can become of your kitchen scraps, and it's really empowering, and you know, it's awesome. So you'll see that community composting is a movement. It's a small decentralized movement that's popping up around the country. I feel like on Instagram there's a new one every day. And I actually have a podcast called the Community Composting Podcast that where I interview owners and founders of different community composting organizations. And it's fascinating to hear like what they're doing in New York City at the Red Hook composting site, for example, where they use no fossil fuels. They just engage volunteer help. Another one, I interviewed Bootstrap. They're like my mentors, and they're spreading like wildfire. They just expanded to Providence, Rhode Island. I interviewed the guys in Moonshot Compost in Houston, Texas, which you think the waste problem in Florida is bad. Houston is just like ridiculous. It's the 4th largest city in the country. Their recycling contamination rate is like 40 or 50%. So like there's not even really a point to recycle with that high of a contamination rate. And it's just like Texas, so everything is big. So there's big opportunity for them, but it's really exciting to see like someone try to spearhead it. Um, so the movement is awesome as a whole. So yeah, let me dive into like the schematics of waste and people, the economics, I guess. Waste is not free. We just put our trash in our trash can, take it to the curb, and it's magically gone. If you're a renter, waste might appear as totally free. But if you're a homeowner, you will see on your property taxes that you pay about 25, $30 a month. And I'm sure as a renter, your landlord is incurring some of that cost into your rent, consciously or subconsciously. So, trash is not free. Recycling is not free. There's the collection and processing of it. So the big driver of the cost of waste are landfill or incinerator tipping fees. And in this picture, you'll see a site I saw many times at landfills around the country. Some trucker wearing a high visibility vest, usually with a beer gut, and he would, drive his truck over the scale, and they would tell him how much his truck weighed on the way in. He would go into the landfill dump, empty his truck, and then they would weigh him on the way out so they could get his net weight, how much waste was in his truck. And that net weight, would be billed according to the number of tons. So you got different tipping fees, they're called, which is the cost per ton. You have different tipping fees all over the country. Up in the Northeast, where it's been heavily developed, there's little space for just landfills. Tipping fees are extremely high, up in the $120 per ton range. They actually don't have many landfills. Like the state of Massachusetts, I think, has like one landfill. That's because like most of the trash from like a city like Boston goes to the incineration, which isn't a great alternative. Incinerators burn the waste. They oftentimes have to like heat their furnace with oil, so they're using other fossil fuels. And then there's the risk of, the ash coming out of the chimney stack is carcinogenic, so no one wants to live by them. But so up in the Northeast, you got really high tipping fees. So trash is, it hurts the pocket. People notice it. Down here in the Southeast region of the United States, we have the cheapest tipping fees. So, clearly we waste the most. And I think that has a lot to do with how cheap trash costs down here in the Southeast. So, you go to the Orange County landfill, it's only $36 a ton. And the county is not looking to raise those prices, because then these truck drivers will decide to go to nearby landfills who are cheaper. So, we're kind of caught in this catch-22. And unfortunately, Orange County doesn't have a solution. They have to make revenue to cover the costs of managing the landfill. And a lot of their revenue comes from these tipping fees. But regardless, the Southeast region of the United States are the biggest wasters in the country, and this is why. So I'm thinking to myself, how can we start carving off, the food waste and the organic waste, and start, diverting as much as we can from the landfill. And a lot of it has to do with economics. If we have a commercial composting site one day, I want to price my tipping fees at $35 a ton. That way, these truck drivers decide, let's take it to the composting. And they don't do that out of the kindness of their hearts or because they care about the environment. They do that because economically it makes sense. So the Orange County landfill has another 70 years at the current pace, but that could obviously increase or decrease as our population grows. And then just so everyone is clear, what happens to a landfill after it's been filled up and capped? I'll give you an example of the famous landfill in New York City. It's located in Staten Island. It's actually called Fresh Kills, which is a hilarious name and ominous. But I've actually been to this one, and it's like a giant mountain of just trash, and grass has grown over it, but there's no, like, they can't use it for anything. In a city like New York City or Staten Island, where land is ridiculously valued, they just have like 100, 40 acres that they cannot do anything with. So, and landfills, sanitary landfills are a relatively new phenomena. They started in about the 70s after the EPA was formed. And landfills, no one really knows what will become of landfills as we go forward in the future. Like, there's not a lot of good options what to do with a landfill. I think there are a lot of potential, like put a solar farm on the face of the landfill. You could put a composting site on the face of the landfill. And I know some landfills, like one up in the Panhandle, are being mined. So they're actually digging up the landfill looking for precious metals. So that's not bad. So pay as you throw is, I think, the best solution we have as as Americans to reduce our waste at the municipal level. And it really takes forward-thinking leaders in the cities and counties and towns to, vote for something like this. And I know Orange County Commissioner Nicole Wilson is a big proponent of the pay-as-you-throw system, which is a residential trash system that basically bills people for the size of the container they have. So it's a variable rate. And as you see, people who have the 96-gallon trash can and fill that up every week, they pay the most. And then as you go down in trash can size, you pay the least. And this is what they're doing. Like my parents in Portland, Oregon, my parents have a cute little like 12-gallon trash can, and they're paying way less than the person in the neighborhood with who's producing just more trash. And the way, they're not necessarily producing less waste, but instead what they're doing is diverting more of that material to the recycle bin and to the organics bin or the composting bin. So it's really, it goes alongside great with the other two kind of curbside programs, recycling and organics diversion. But it's significant because, I know from my numbers as a business owner that the average household produces about 12 pounds of food scraps per week. And, food scraps is some of the heaviest material out there. So it's really reducing like the tonnage going to the landfill. And I think we should, again, prioritize it ahead of recycling, but you can have both side by side and really start dwindling away at the residential waste stream. I know there are some questions. There are some perceived drawbacks for pay as you throw. And some people, think that maybe this would cause more illegal dumping because, if you already fill up your trash can, and you got more, are you going to save it for the next week? Or are you going to like find a dumpster behind in an alley behind a Costco and just like throw it in there? Or you're going to throw it into the woods? And really, of the cities who are already doing this, that might happen occasionally, but there's no real evidence that this is like a significant problem that is a effect of implementing a pay as you throw. And I think as this could, I think the real concern is it could increase contamination in your recycling bins and your organics bins, because people have all this material and they don't want to, they want to be cheap filling up their trash cans. So they're like, oh, this paper plate from Chipotle, or this paper cup from Starbucks, it's paper. It can go in the compost or the recycle bin. But, actually those things can't be composted because it has like a plastic poly coated liner, and they can't be recycled either. So, I think contamination rates could go up if you just implemented a pay as you throw program without doing proper education for the residents. But that's why you have to do education. You can't just give people this option before, coming in with pamphlets, maybe tagging their carts, just like Orange County is doing. You tag their carts you lift the lid, you see contamination, and you write a little tag that says, whoops, we don't take this in our program. And also, if someone continues to keep contaminating after all the education you can provide, you just take away their recycling and organics carts, leave them with the biggest size trash can, and you just charge them more. I think there are incentives for every problem we face in the waste industry. Looking at some case studies of, up in Massachusetts where tipping fees are the highest, you will see some towns and cities who have pay as you throw. And that's because these towns and the cities, they have contracts with their landfills and incinerators, and they're on the hook for paying these high tipping fees. So in Concord, New Hampshire, as soon as their contract expired and they had to do a new contract with way higher tipping fees, they're like, oh shoot, we can't be paying $120 a ton at this current waste generation from our residents. So they did pay as you throw, and after the first year they saw a 43% drop in how much solid waste was being produced from their residents. Their recycling rate went up 3 times, 36% from 13%. They didn't have a composting program, which is unfortunate. I'm sure they would have seen them go down twice as much if they had composting. But you can really see how significant pay-as-you-throw program is. Worcester, Massachusetts, and yeah, that's the correct way to pronounce it. Someone in Massachusetts will ding you if you say Worcester. But so they implemented pay as you throw, and they saw Worcester is a pretty decent sized town, maybe 100,000. So you're talking about a lot of trash, and they were able to divert 400,000 tons of trash in the 20 years since they implemented pay as you throw. And that's a savings of like $10 million for the town's general fund. That's $10 million less of taxes that they have to collect from their residents. So it really, helps everyone out. And the recycling rate went up, just everything great happens with pay as you throw. This Hanson, Massachusetts, it's a pretty well-to-do little town in Massachusetts. And there is evidence that recycling rates are correlated with income levels. So the higher income people typically are better recyclers and recycle more than lower income people. So you can really see the magnitude when they implemented pay-as-you-throw, and they decreased their solid waste tonnage by 64%, which is ridiculous. And I think they didn't even have a composting program, which is surprising, but you know, good for them. That's crazy. So pay-as-you-throw is the way to go. Another tricky sector of the waste industry is the apartment building or multifamily buildings where, all residents kind of share one dumpster, and you might have like a valet person picking up your trash outside your door. No one's really on the hook for contamination. There's no incentives. Like, people can produce as much trash as they want or as little. They can be as good as they can, not producing a lot. But OTown Compost, we have a solution for that. We call it the multi-res program, and it's a program that we partner with EcoSafe, who is manufacturing compostable liners and bags that we use in our program. But essentially, it's convenient because you have people sign up for composting. They receive these little kitchen caddies that sit on their counter. They get a compostable liner, and when they fill it up every 2 or 3 days, they take their bag, drop it in the tote, which is like centrally located, maybe near the mailroom, the trash room, maybe outside by the dumpster. So residents just take it to a centralized location, and then you have a dispenser right there so they can just easily grab a new one. I mean, this has worked wonders in multifamily buildings around the country. Unfortunately, we haven't signed on our first apartment complex, but I'm predicting it'll happen soon. But this is a great way to like divert food waste from a really tough sector to tackle, like the multifamily sector. And you can provide like a feedback loop. So if the OTown driver goes to pick up the tote, they see a little contamination, they can put like they can like tape up the contamination or pin it up, like if it's a rubber band or plastic bag, pin it up over the bin. That way people are in this feedback loop and they know not to do it. So this is what it would look like in that centralized bin. You got good signage, you got just looks nice. So I think like another cool idea I had was like valet composting service. I mean, there's already valet trash. I don't see why you couldn't do valet composting, where people just leave out their maybe their little kitchen caddy with a tied compostable bag in it. A person comes around, aggregates them all, and then it all goes out to the centralized bin. And a lot of these multifamily complexes have like complimentary doggy bags. OTown Compost, we sell compostable doggy bags too. So if your building is really looking to go green. And my final slide is, just about OTown Compost. We're taking on the problem of food waste. If you're interested in subscribing, use the promo code WestOrange, one word, for your first month free, or $22 off rather. But yeah, we're slaying food waste one bucket at a time. We're already past 100 tons composted, and that number is just increasing at an increasing rate. So hope you recycle your food scraps. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Charlie. You are really satisfying one of the biggest needs in our community, and it's completely essential. I'm excited to see how you expand even more over the past year and a half. You've grown so much. We're so excited to see how far you've come. You know, people are excited about it. People are ready to start composting, and so I hope that this inspired a lot of people that are viewing today to also start composting and subscribe to OTown Compost. But now we're going to do some Q&A. So if anybody has any questions, please drop them in the comments right now. But I have a couple questions for you. And to get started, I kind of wanted to talk about what you were saying with not the pay to throw, but before that, where garbage trucks go in, get weighed, and then go out. So up north, are they aware that they're being charged for how much they throw away?
Yeah, I think more so than down here because I don't think it's like baked in. I don't think the waste and recycling fees are baked into the property taxes. I think it's actually like a monthly bill they receive.
Okay, so it's really not based on your individual waste, it's based on like your community's average waste.
No, so in like a pay-as-you-throw system, for example, that you would receive a bill in the mail or, an e-bill basically for like 35 bucks a month. And, you would have to pay that every month. So it's really based on the size of your container. But in those towns up north that aren't doing pay as you throw, yeah, I'm sure it's also pretty opaque. Trash in general in this country is very opaque. It's not like the cost of trash is rather, but it's not like Korea, which South Korea has a really interesting way of billing for trash, where you have to like take your food waste, go to like a centralized, like they have these neighborhood stations where you take your food waste, you weigh it on a scale, it prints out like a ticket, and like that, then you have to pay in the machine or something. So you're actually being charged by like the weight, and it's a perfectly set up system, but I don't know if America could handle that.
Yeah, I don't know if we could either, but we need to divert and go towards that direction. So you're talking about how Orlando does need to have the infrastructure, but we don't right now. But it could be a privately owned infrastructure. Do you see OTown Compost becoming that infrastructure for Orlando?
Yeah, I mean, we are looking to, come up with a infrastructure solution because, we can, I think there is ample demand out there for restaurants and offices, people who want to divert their food scraps and are willing to even pay to have it picked up. There's a lot of people who still are unable or unwilling to pay, like businesses. But I think, we need to, the demand is so much that eventually we're either going to just like be at capacity and can't pick up anymore, or we need to find a solution. So yes, I'm definitely looking at ways to site like a commercial composting facility. Or interesting piece of technology I was looking at recently was like an aerobic digester, not an anaerobic digester, but an aerobic digester where you feed it. It can handle like 30 tons of food scraps a day, or a week actually, which is amazing. But also out the back end produces this microbial rich fertilizer that can be like used in a farm or to, a food forest. But what I love about it is it's not anaerobic, it's aerobic. So the soil amendment is like still really good at sequestering carbon and doing all that.
Yeah, that actually leads me to another question. So it's been new topic that's been going around, or at least it's new to me, with Kiss the Ground, the documentary, where soil is the solution to climate change because of sequestering all the greenhouse gases. Do you believe that healthy soil could be one of the biggest solutions to rising temperatures?
Yeah, I really think so. And that documentary is great, by the way. And I see that documentary is more focused on the farming sector, like how industrial farming is really broken in this country post World War II. It just like started going down this path using heavy, pesticides, herbicides, and artificial fertilizer rather than focusing on the soil. But slowly there is gradual like movement to farmers, not tilling, like disturbing that soil, like that holds so much carbon. That is a huge contributor to climate change. But also like, yeah, I think composting goes hand in hand with that. Um, the state of California, I would say, is like the best example of a state that understands how important soil is to climate change, and they've actually mandated any food service businesses producing over a ton or more have to be recycling it or composting it. And California is like the breadbasket of the US, has all the farms, so a lot of that composting, that compost coming from food waste is being applied to farms and fields and just like helping out the soil. So, I mean, if California can do it, I think other states can too.
If California can do it, then Orlando can do it, right?
Yeah,
And you are doing that on a smaller scale too. You're creating a composting and putting it back into systems like Four Roots and Fleet Farming, where we're putting it into the soil and sequestering more carbon because of our healthy soil, because of your amazing compost. So that's
yeah.
really amazing. And kind of getting back into composting itself and just the do's and the don'ts. So many people try to compost their food scraps and then give up on it because they don't have anywhere to put it. How would you solve this issue? And are gardens part of the answer?
So yeah, backyard composting, I think, has a bad rap because it takes time management. We're in Florida, which a lot of people say you can't compost in Florida's summer, and it's kind of like impossible to avoid the insects or um, yeah. So I think like a lot of people do give up, and that's another reason I started OTown Compost is we make it extremely convenient, odor and pest free. We handle the dirty part of composting or food waste recycling. But I think garden like, and then we just give back the finished compost, and it's like black and crumbly. It's good, and you can apply it to your garden. So I think gardening is definitely important factor, but you don't necessarily have to do your own composting. There's definitely solutions out there, like start your own red wiggler worm bin. They're slow eaters, but they produce a beautiful casting, and they're a way to like slowly recycle your food scraps, maybe 1 pound a day at a time. So
Speaking of which, I recently saw this incredible invention that I don't know if you saw, that was like a small composter for your counter, and you put compost in it and it put your food scraps in it and it creates compost in like 3 hours or like 5 hours. Did you hear about that?
I think I've seen that video, and I have no idea how that works. That's
Yeah, how is that even
crazy.
possible?
But that kind of sounds like the aerobic digester, but the aerobic digester is much larger than that. But yeah, that's crazy. I even saw a video where like the person was putting like compostable utensils, like that plasticky compostable utensils, which we can't take in our program. It's like it takes forever to break down, but they were putting it in this thing, and then out the other end came this like black compost. I'm like, what? That's
I don't
crazy.
believe it. I mean, I believe it, but that's a little suspicious. If you're making a video, we all know how video editing can be.
Yeah.
Compostable utensils are good though. I'm not trying to discourage that, but yes, you can't take those, right?
Yeah.
So compostable plastic is not as sustainable as people think
We
it
do
is.
take like wooden utensils and bamboo. That's way preferred over the like the plastic, the bioplastics. So
Mm. Okay, because most of those take about 10 years to decompose, right?
in a landfill, they could take like way longer, but that's because it's just like mummified. But I think in our compost, yeah, they would take like a couple years, even at high heats. I don't know.
So kind of getting back to actual compost. So is all compost created equal? What are some different types of compost and what are their benefits?
Yeah, so I hope one day when we do have like a more a larger facility and we have like our operations running like really smooth. I hope to have a couple of different blends of compost, and I kind of model our composting site off of Cedar Grove. They're the composting site in Seattle, Washington, and they're crazy. Like they do 350,000 tons a year of food waste that they compost of organic waste, and just so happens that happens to be exactly how many tons Orange County is sending to their landfill. So it shows me that it is possible. You just have to get like Cedar Grove big. So I would like want to have a blend with like just um vermicompost would be great. Have some worms just go throughout the finished pile, creating air pockets and worm castings. I would want a more carbon rich soil amendment where it's maybe like dark mulch. It's kind of like you don't necessarily screen the compost, so you have your like bigger pieces of wood chips and stuff, but it does create that porosity, that airflow in your soil. So, some people would really like it. You got your more nitrogen rich soil amendment or compost, which is kind of like the Monterey mushroom compost. And that would be like if we were mixed, our composting recipe was using like horse manure, food waste, and maybe a little bit of carbon, but that would be like our nitrogen rich compost. And then hmm yeah, I think there's a ton of different blends, but um I haven't had time to like really look into that yet because we just started selling our compost at this farmer's market on Saturdays, and um, it's awesome feeling to like put the compost in OTown Compost.
Absolutely. So are worms like the essential component to the best compost?
Yeah, I think people consider vermicompost like pretty primo. Um, And worms in your soil are like if you're a farmer and you have worms in your soil, you're pretty confident that your soil is good because those worms, like, their poop is the casting, and it's like really, I guess it's like really nutrient rich and has all
Mhm.
these vitamins and minerals. But then also they're like going throughout the soil and kind of like aerating the soil. So your soil is like light and fluffy. Um, yeah, I think that would be like pretty premium. And like if you're looking for worm castings, I would highly recommend Revival Gardening, who not only sells worm castings, but provides like a mix of sea kelp, granite dust, like other minerals and nutrients mixed with the vermicompost or the worm castings, and it's a great fertilizer. You don't want to use it like compost, like fill up your raised bed with it, but you could put it on the base of your plants and then maybe like some mulch on top of that, so it just like really gets the plant.
Good tip. I hope this gets everybody excited for gardening. It's fall now, so this is basically one of the best seasons. It is the best season to grow in Florida. So everybody get excited, get out there in your garden or build a garden with us. You can use Charlie Pioli, get some OTown Compost and have him bring compost to you. You're going to have a great season, growing season all year long, actually. But you are really an inspiration to a lot of people for sustainable businesses. And so I think that it'd be important to kind of talk about that a little bit. So how do you think more businesses can still make a profit while prioritizing a mission tied to climate action?
um yeah, I think that I think that there are like ways to be prosperous but also help the environment, and it usually doesn't necessarily mean you have to like reinvent the wheel. Composting is just like super old, but what really helped me was coming from the industry, like the waste industry, and seeing like how it's done in this country, the status quo, and learning from that. How can we make the tweak, but I keep a lot of the same operational procedures, like how to draw up a route, for example, to like do a efficient collection of, stops. That's something that I'm just, thank God I was coming from the industry because I learned that. But, I think you can not compromise your values. You can still take a lot of those things, but then stay true to your mission and your passion to keep food waste out of the landfill is mine. But I think I would recommend, like, if you're going to go in solar um, or some other like sustainable business, try like getting a job and working for a couple years like in the industry to at least get a glimpse of how the professionals think about this, and then you can have like a more educated conversation with those professionals and go on. And another great thing is you see where the gap is in the industry, and then you're like, that's what I want to do. Like I want to create that gap, that solution. And you can't have a business unless you're like providing a service or a product for people, and you're like, it's an exchange, so they're exchanging you money, but you're like working really hard for them, and you're exchanging them something that they want. So yeah, that's my
That's
business advice.
Yeah, that's great advice for people that want to start up a business in a sustainable field, which is so important. If you want to, please do it. We need more of that. And also, the want for supporting sustainable business is growing like crazy. And we have another question. Someone in DeLand, our viewer, wants to know if there's anybody doing something like you're doing in West Volusia.
I think the closest one I know is in New Smyrna, but I think they're called blue carbon compost. But I don't believe, unfortunately, there's anyone in DeLand. Um, yeah, unfortunately not. But there's many ways to keep your food waste out of the landfill, even if you have to go like make a periodic trip to the woods and, dig a shallow hole, that's better than the landfill. So, or, that you got a neighbor with like a pig or a cow, a horse, that I think a big solution for food waste is animal feed. And there's this composter that I interviewed on my podcast called Black Earth Compost, and they've already done like 10 million pounds of food waste every year. They're doing like millions of pounds that they're composting and picking up. But they told me like the biggest food waste recycler in Massachusetts are the pig farmers who go out and pick up food waste for free because they just need, to supplement their feed costs. And it's working great. And there's still room for us composters to have a service. So
awesome. Well, this has been a really amazing conversation, ranging from the nitty-gritty details about composting to sustainable businesses. And once again, Charlie, thank you so much. You really are an inspiration. Thank goodness that you had the initiative to do this, because it's so much needed in our community. Do you have any closing statements that you want to give to our audience?
I just wanted to mention the pumpkin smash that is gonna happen Thursday, November 4th at the Audubon Park Church there in Audubon Park. And yeah, bring your wilted pumpkin. Don't let that go to the landfill. We'll be there. Like, what do you have, Kristen? Like baseball
I'm going to
bags?
be there for about like 4 hours, so people can just drop it off. But if you want to come for the composting workshop, we're going to have Christy Folk, one of Charlie's amazing composters, come out and give a discussion about composting. And also you're going to be able to smash your pumpkin and kind of help the process of composting.
Yeah,
So
and we'll have
really
we'll be there with our truck to pick it up and haul it back to our composting site, making sure none of it goes to the trash.
Yes, so make your pumpkin pie and then save the rest. Awesome. Thank you so much, Charlie.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Make sure to follow OTown Compost on Instagram and Facebook and see how much they're growing and the incredible work that they're doing. We can drop it in the comments below. But if you're interested in getting more involved with us at Ideas for Us, this Friday we're having an eco art event at Orlando Brewing, but it is family friendly. It's going to be outside, social distancing, and we're going to be painting tote bags made out of old t-shirts. So please bring your old t-shirts. We're going to be painting tote bags, some old vinyl records, if I can find any at the thrift store, and some small terrariums, and also having discussions on climate grief, climate development, and just socializing as activists. So come out to that this Friday. Please sign up through our Eventbrite so that I have enough supplies for all of you. And then on the 20th, we're having an environmental justice workshop with Farm Workers Association, talking about farm workers' rights, not only in the United States, but also getting very specific to here in Central Florida, as it is really a prominent in the Apopka area and dating back from slave labor to today. And it's a really important conversation that we have, so we know where our money is going when we're buying from grocery stores. And then at the end of the month, we're going to have a shoreline restoration project on the 29th in partnership with Orange County Parks and Rec. It's going to be over at Roosevelt Martin Park. We're going to be planting bare root shoreline plants and also cypress trees. So if you're interested in that, please sign up. And I put this out of order, but next Saturday, Ideas for Us is working with fleet farming, even though we are fleet farming. Don't get that confused. A lot of people don't know Ideas for Us and fleet farming are the same. Fleet farming is under Ideas for Us as our flagship eco enterprise, but we're going to the farmlet on the 16th as a whole organization to do a swarm ride where we're going to be harvesting, weeding, doing a bunch of fun stuff in the garden. So come out to that and get your hands dirty. It's going to be a beautiful day. And I made this really quickly. The Save Your Pumpkins all month long, please. So save your pumpkins, because on November 4th, we are going to be having the pumpkin smashing event. 5:30 to 7, but you can come from probably about 4 to around 7:30 to drop off your pumpkins if you don't want to take part in the actual composting workshop. And just as a quick recap, we had one of our biggest projects of the organization's history for the Orlando branch. We planted 1,000 trees at D Ranch Preserve last month, and it's something that we're really, really proud of. We had over 100 volunteers come out to do this. And I just want to give a shout out to all of our partners that made that possible. Ismaili Civic, Florida Rising, One Tree Planted, who funded the project, and Conservation Florida, who owns the land of D Ranch Preserve. This was a really amazing event, and it was so incredible to see so many people get behind this mission of climate action. And we're going to be doing a lot more projects like this, tree plantings almost every single month, shoreline restoration projects, really satisfying the global needs with local solutions. And we would love for you to be a part of this. So please follow us on Facebook and Instagram. If you have any questions or would like to get more involved, you can go ahead and email me at kristen.anderson@ideasforus.org, but make sure to stay up to date with us on social media. And I would love to see you at our next Eco Action project. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.